What's up, YouTube? This is Percy the Barber coming at you guys with a new video. So today we're going to be doing a taper fade haircut. Some people call it a Philly, some people call it a blowout. I guess it just kind of depends where you're from. Out here in the Northwest, we just call it a taper fade. So I went with this particular client because he's got fine hair. Fine hair for newer barbers can be a little bit more challenging, particularly because there's a lot less room for error, especially when it comes to blending. Alright, so let's get started. So we're going to start by combing the hair into its natural place. So I'm going to take my 2-guard to set my foundation, and I'm also going to try and take that 2 all the way up to the parietal ridge and blend it into that longer comb over length on top. So next here, I'm going to set my initial guideline for the taper with the clipper guard all the way closed. So after I set that nice clean guide, I'm going to go ahead and open up the clipper lever all the way open. And create my next guideline. That'll leave behind a small line of demarcation, but we're going to come back with the clipper blade halfway open to go ahead and blend out that little line there. So one thing you'll notice me doing is using the corner of my blade. So to effectively cut that temple area, which is a small area to work, it makes a huge difference when you can just tilt your clipper and just use a few teeth at a time without using the whole blade and having to cut the whole entire section all at once. So we've moved on to our number 1 guard, moving on to our next panel. So before I pull out the 1.5 guard, I'm actually going to go ahead and use the half guard to detail and really smoothen out that transition between the blade all the way open and the number 1 guard closed. So for the next part of the taper, we're going to use the 1.5 guard to go ahead and create our next panel. After we create that panel, we're going to gently open up that 1.5 guard and try and connect that 1.5 with the number 2 that we had set up earlier with our foundation. And then we'll come back underneath that with the number 1 guard to go ahead and blend everything out and connect the whole entire taper. So one thing you always want to be mindful of when you're cutting is actually your client's growth pattern. So you can see the hair is kind of growing at almost like a diagonal, like a northeast direction. So you can see me kind of tilt my clipper and just kind of get that optimal angle. That way I can go ahead and get the best cut possible. Alright, so here's that number 1 guard. I'm going to start with the clipper guard all the way open. Definitely using the corners and the angles. I don't want to take too much. At this point, I'm really blending, so easy does it. Nice, short, gentle, choppy strokes until you get that desired outcome. So if you guys are digging the content, be sure to smash that like button or that subscribe button. Alright, and then we're moving on to the half guard here. I'm just doing a little bit more detail work. Still using that corner, still using those first couple teeth there on the left, just to make sure I can cut the exact hairs I want to cut. So for my finishing step here, I'm going to pull out some texturizing shears. Using this right where that number 2 was, that parietal ridge area. Just trying to get a seamless connection, really looking for that waterfall effect. You don't want a line of demarcation, you just want a real soft blend right in that area. Alright, so we're moving on to the back. And so you're also going to notice that I'm consistently combing that hair into place. So we're going to begin with setting our initial guideline with our trimmer. And so you want to get a nice straight guide all the way across. But more importantly, you want to make sure all the hair left below the skin line here is completely gone. You don't want to leave any hair left behind. And just as a reference point, you want to have your skin line about an inch below your client's earlobe. That's going to ensure that you have room to blend, and that'll also help you make sure that you don't take the taper a little bit higher than you want to. So we're going to use the exact same steps we did on the temple area, starting with the clipper blade all the way open. Key here is just making a consistent panel all the way through, making sure that it's a complete half as we're cutting from left to right. So now we're going to attack that bottom line. Easiest way to do that is to go ahead and close the clipper all the way and just start working at that bottom line. You're going to work that line until it starts to move just a little bit. Once you get some movement, you're going to open the clipper blade about 25% of the way and just work slightly higher. And then you're going to open to that halfway notch, then that 75% notch, all within that panel until it's completely blended out. So that initial guideline that we created, that's actually your measuring stick. That's going to help you stay within that panel. So that's going to tell you what's high and what's low, exactly where to go, and just what area that you're trying to work with that specific length. And again, details, details, details. Don't move on to that next step until you're completely satisfied. Alright, so we're on to the next step. That's going to be the number 1. We're going to create our next panel there. And so below that number 1, we're going to work that half guard and just create a seamless transition from where we left off with the clipper blade all the way open to that top where we just created our new number 1 panel. And I see a lot of barbers overextending their flick out motion. That's not always necessary. More often than not, you just need to learn how to maintain that consistent pressure and just get the blade at that right angle so you can get the maximum effective cut. Every stroke has to have a purpose. You definitely want to minimize any wasted motions. So I'm going in here with a half guard just to smoothen up that transition. Make it a habit to detail as you go. You want to detail as you go because right now you know that half guard is going to get that job done. It's going to buff out that seam and create that transition that you want. If you save it for later, you're going to end up having to play a guessing game of what length it's going to take to get out a specific line or dark area or whatever the situation may be. So here comes a 1.5, creating that next panel. Again, consistency is everything. I'm using about a ½ inch to almost an inch guidelines. So we're going to follow up that 1.5 guard with a number 1. So when it comes to blending, it's absolutely critical that you know your guard lengths. You have to know what guards line up with what your sequence is, and which order that you want to actually use the guards. So there's a lot of different systems and techniques when it comes to fading, and to be honest with you, they all work, but every single one's predicated on just knowing your blade lengths, your guards, how all of them intertwine with one another. But don't forget, all of that's going to take time to develop your barber eye, just to get those repetitions in. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Alright, so the fade's coming together. We got the bottom portion done. Now we're just going to connect that top half with the lower portion. So I'm going to start with the number 3. Using a down fade technique, then I'm going to work down to a number 2, then a 1.5, just to completely blend everything together and create that seamless transition that I'm looking for. So my client did ask for a lineup. So we're going to start on his neckline, right behind his ear there. We're going to take that line and we're going to hook it right into that soft temple area and just get that nice, beautiful, crisp arch. So when it comes to this area, you definitely want to approach it with more of like a tap and go technique. Really understanding that you want to be patient. It's probably going to take you 2 or 3 passes to get that desired outcome. And then more importantly, you're definitely going to want to use the corner of the blade, as you see there, just to create that nice soft hook there. And just being patient, just keep working it, use those corners, use the mirror, you know, just do what you got to do to try and get that line in there. So a lot of barbers do use a straight razor right in that nape area just to get that sharp line. To be honest with you, if you can modify your trimmer, it's going to hit the way you need it to hit. Like, you're not going to need the razor right behind that to get that nice sharp line. So right here I'm using the comb just to lift up those longer hairs on top so I can find his natural hairline and begin to start creating his outline. So I'm not too worried about the hair in the fringe area. That hair is actually going to be lifted up and styled. You'll see at the end of the haircut. Alright, so we're going to finish the lineup on the other side here. So one thing you're going to consistently see me do, and it's to comb that hair into its natural place. And you're also going to see me comb the baby hairs that fall over his natural hairline. So these are the hairs that you want to cut. These are the hairs that are hanging over that hairline, making it fuzzy and not making it as sharp. So if you can cut those hairs, that'll really help sharpen up the outline of your edge up. And now for the finished product. And thanks again for watching, guys. If you like the content, definitely smash that like button. You can find me on IG at Percy the Barber. You can also find me on my website at percythebarber.com. Until next time, peace!